Today we will have an amazing walk around the city of Subotica in northern Serbia. Subotica is a beautiful city with a rich history and cultural heritage. You should definitely visit several interesting places in this city. Don't forget to also try the local cuisine and interact with the locals to enhance your trip. Friends, today is November 11th. So what should you do this Saturday? That's right, come to the very north of Serbia and visit the city of Subotica. This is a former Hungarian city. And this is very exciting. There is fantastic and beautiful architecture, streets, and today's autumn atmosphere. This is an additional reason to take an amazing walk around the city. That's why we're here. Autumn is an excellent reason to go with you on a short but fascinating tour of the city, to these places. Mesmerizing autumn weather, mesmerizing streets, architecture and positive mood. The atmosphere of deep autumn is the best combination. So come take a walk with me. Subotica is European and lamp Serbia. Once in Serbia, I immediately wanted to see the city of Subotica. I heard that it is special and unlike anything else in the Balkans. Since ancient times, this has been a crossroads of European roads. This land remembers the Scythians, Dacians, Goths, Huns and Avars. Later came Serbs, Hungarians, Croats, Germans, Greeks, Slovaks, Jews. A mixture of languages and cultures. Subotica was first mentioned at the end of the 14th century under the name Subotica. Since then, the city has received about 200 different names. Each people who lived here called it in their own way. Rulers changed: Hungarians, Serbs, the Ottoman Empire, the Habsburg monarchy. Today Subotica is the northernmost city in Serbia. There are 3 official languages here: Serbian, Croatian and Hungarian. More than half of the residents are Catholics. All this greatly distinguishes Subotica from other cities in the country. A kind of piece of Europe. Advanced and elegant. That's what I thought, at least. Subotica is a city in northern Serbia, in the autonomous province of Vojvodina. It is the second largest city in Vojvodina after the city of Novi Sad and the 5th largest city in Serbia, not including Kosovo, as well as the northernmost city in Serbia. The population as of 2011 is 105,000 people. Literally from the first minutes of my stay in Subotica, I was struck by the cleanliness of the streets and courtyards. Yes, it would seem such a trivial thing as cleanliness, but how it was lacking during our trip to Serbia. The second thing we immediately noticed was the number of bike paths that literally entwine the city. Well, the third thing that immediately pleased the eye was the chic architecture inherited from the Hungarians. And here's a simple equation. Architecture plus a clean and comfortable urban environment equals an almost ideal city for any tourist. We, like most travelers, began our acquaintance with the city and its sights from the main city square. Here, the City Hall, built in 1910, attracts all attention. From that moment on, there was one more fan among the fans of the Hungarian Art Nouveau style. The building itself now houses a bank, McDonald's and some other city government. I had a very strong desire to go up to the observation deck. From the City Hall and the central square, like the rays of the sun, streets diverge in different directions, both pedestrian and not so pedestrian. On these streets, in fact, most cafes are located for every taste and budget. Although to say that Subotica has a very large selection of establishments would not be entirely fair. There are not as many of them as in Novi Sad, but there were enough to not go hungry. Another thing that captivated us about Subotica was its leisurely pace and some kind of calmness that was literally in the air. Its measured atmosphere resonated perfectly with our inner state, when we no longer wanted to run anywhere, rush somewhere or look for something. I just wanted to wander around the city aimlessly, not photographing everything in the mad tourist mode, but just to have a blast. But it was impossible not to take photographs here. After all, such a concentration of buildings, very interesting both from an architectural point of view for aesthetes, and simply beautiful for ordinary tourists like us, has never been seen anywhere during our trip to Serbia. But it's better, as they say, to see once. It has been established that people lived on the site of the future city 3,000 years ago. Due to its location on the route between Europe and Asia, this place was the scene of conflict for many peoples and states. As a result of frequent and large migrations, various peoples found themselves in the territory of Subotica. Serbs, Hungarians, Germans, Slovaks, and Greeks still live here. Often, new owners changed the name of the city. During its history, the city changed more than 200 names. During the Middle Ages, Subotica had an interesting fate. During the Avar domination, the Slavs also appeared here from the 6th century. After the fall of the Avar Khaganate, this region became part of the Slavic states, the Great Moravian Principality and the Bulgarian Kingdom. During the period of Bulgarian rule, the region of Bačka was ruled by Voivode Salin. Subotica was first mentioned in written documents during Hungarian rule on May 7, 1391 under the Latin name Subotica. Built at a crossroads, this city has often been the site of turbulent historical events. Transylvanian Duke János Pongratz built a fortress here in 1470, but it could not withstand people and time. Now only traces of it remain on the inner wall of the tower of the Franjevic church. A semi-legendary figure from Subotica's past is King Jovan Nenad, who appeared after the defeat inflicted on the Hungarian army by the Turks at the city of Mohacs in 1526. Then let me remind you the Ottoman Empire inflicted a crushing defeat on the united Hungarian Czech-Croatian army. The mystique of King Jovan Nenad was enhanced by a strange black stripe that ran from his temples to the soles of his feet, which is why the king was nicknamed the Black. He ousted the Turks from the Serbian and Hungarian Bačka and founded here his short-lived Slavic, relatively Serbian state, which, in addition to Bačka, included the northern Banat, now a crossroads of 3 states, Hungary, Serbia and Romania, and a small part of Srem. He then proclaimed himself king, and chose Subotica as the capital. True, this king died in 1527 in a conflict with the Hungarian ruler. Soon after the death of the king, his state also disappeared. 4 centuries later, on the anniversary of his death, a monument to him was erected on the main square in Subotica, which was destroyed in 1941 by the Hungarian occupiers, who then went over to the fascist side. But by the way, this monument was updated and put back in place in 1991. Today this king is revered in the city. Generally speaking, the city was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire from 1542 to 1686, and then came under the rule of the Habsburgs. Under Ottoman rule, the city was called Subotica. Local Serbs and Bunjevo people have used the name Subotica since the 17th century. In the middle of the 18th century, the city was renamed Sancta Maria. Then in 1779 the city received a different name, Maria Teresiopolis, in honor of the Austrian Empress Maria Theresa. The Hungarian name Subotica came into official use in 1845. In 1918, Subotica became part of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes and officially received its modern name. Due to its proximity to the border with Hungary, Subotica has a very strong influence on its history on the part of the Hungarians. However, Serbian is the most commonly used language in everyday life. Hungarian is also used by almost 1/3 of the population in their daily conversations. Both languages are widely used in commercial and official notations. We have now left the town hall and are walking along Korzo Street. This is something like Moscow's Arbat, a pedestrian street, but small. I liked her right away. Quite short, but pleasant. The houses on the sides are well kept. Some of them are painted in bright colors. Others are distinguished by intricate decoration in the style of Ferenc Reichl, a Hungarian architect and representative of the Hungarian secession. During this walk, I was again drawn to the gateway. But not into the usual damp and dark place, but into a kind of designer gateway. Decorated in a classic style, the passage led, naturally, to the food court. The establishments here must be serving Hungarian cuisine. Goulash and all that stuff. I read a lot about them and decided it was worth a try. But not now. There were also many cafes and pastry shops on Korzo Street. From the shop windows, piles of multicolored ice cream and tempting-looking sweets stacked in pyramids beckoned. I heard that in Subotica they make special, very tasty cakes. Seeing the sights of Subotica turned out to be easier than I thought. Some of the houses on these streets contained institutions such as banks or savings banks. And now you can also find banks on the ground floors. People live on the upper floors. But if we rewind history another 3 centuries back, we get a really interesting historical panel. Immediately after the Ottoman period, the city came under the influence of the Habsburg administration. In 1687, about 5,000 Bunevci, and let me remind you that this is a small South Slavic people, settled in Bačka, including Subotica. After the decisive battle with the Ottomans at Senta under the leadership of Prince Eugene of Savoy on the 11th of September 1697, Subotica became part of the military border zone of Tis, Mirs, created by the Habsburg monarchy. In the meantime, the uprising of Francis II Ricoza, which is also known as the Kurix War, broke out. In the Subotica region, Ricoza engaged in battle against the Rak national militia. Rak was a designation for the South Slavic people, mostly Serbs and Bunjevos, and in the Kingdom of Hungary they were often called Rakoks. In a later period, Rakok came to mean, first of all, Serbs of the Orthodox faith. Serbian military families enjoyed a number of privileges due to their service in the Habsburg monarchy. However, Subotica gradually developed from a simple garrison town into a market town with its own civil charter in 1743. When this happened, many Serbs complained about the loss of their privileges. Most left the city in protest, and some of them founded a new settlement near Subotica in Aleksandrovo, while others emigrated to Russia. In New Serbia, a new Russian province created for them, these Serbs founded a new settlement and also named it Subotica. I will only remind you that New Serbia is a military administrative unit in the Novorossiysk region Russian Empire, on the territory of modern Ukraine near Kiev. In 1775, a Jewish community was founded in Subotica. A few decades later, in 1779, Empress Maria Theresa of Austria further elevated the city's status by declaring it a free royal city. Enthusiastic residents of the city once again renamed Subotica to Maria Theresiapolis. This status as a free royal city gave a great impetus to the development of the city. During the 19th century its population doubled, attracting many people from across the Habsburg monarchy. This ultimately led to significant demographic changes. In the first half of the 19th century, the Bunjevo South Slavs still formed the majority, but an increasing number of Hungarians and Jews settled in Subotica. This process was not stopped even by the outbreak of revolutions in the Habsburg monarchy in the mid-19th century. Thus, during the revolution from 1848 to 1849, the declared borders of the autonomous Serbian Vojvodina included Subotica, but Serbian troops were unable to establish control in the region. On March 5, 1849, in a place called Caponia, a battle took place between the Serbian and Hungarian armies, in which the Hungarians won. The first newspaper in the city was also published during the Revolution of 1849. It was called The State of Our Motherland, and was published in Hungarian by the local printing house of Karoli Bitterman. Unlike the majority of Serbs and Croats who opposed the Hungarians, part of the local people of the Slavic Bunevji supported the Hungarian Revolution. In 1849, following the defeat of the Russian and Habsburg armies during the Hungarian Revolution of 1848, the city was separated from the Kingdom of Hungary along with most of the Bačka region and became part of a separate Habsburg province called the Voivodeship of Serbia and the Banate of Timisoara. The administrative center of this new province was Timisoara, a large Romanian city near the border with modern Serbia. The province existed until 1860. During the existence of the voivodeship, in 1853, Subotica acquired its impressive theater. Well, then the city lives its own life, and the next changes begin during the First World War. I have already told about those events earlier. Well, we move further along the city streets. But if there was a Hungarian administration here before, how did the situation move on? Thus, after the establishment of the dual monarchy in 1867, what followed was what is often called the «golden age» of urban development in Subotica. After 1867, many schools were opened, and in 1869, a railroad connected the city with the rest of the world. In 1896, a power station was built, which further contributed to the development of the city and the entire region. Currently, Subotica has adorned itself with wonderful Central European finished architecture. In 1902, a Jewish synagogue was built in the Art Nouveau style, which we will get to later. Between 1849 and 1860 it was part of the Voivodeship of Serbia and the Banate of Timisoara region. Ahead is the impressive and beautiful town hall building. It was built in 1910 by two architects from Budapest, Marcel Camor and Desir Jacob. Just as Art Nouveau as the Reichl chamber. And it is also richly decorated with multicolored zsolnai ceramics. The decor depicts hearts, leaves, tulips, peacock feathers and something else. There are stained glass windows on the windows. The town house, that is, the town hall, in Subotica is the largest and, according to many, the most beautiful building in Subotica. A bar and town tavern were designed on the ground floor, and on the floors were the town hall, the offices of the Grand Prefect and the mayor, administrative offices, the police and the remand prison. The north side, with arcades projecting in front of the wall panel in the central part, has a vestibule flanked on either side by smaller rooms, at the foot of two unequal towers. Decor motifs and patterns, leaves, tulip flowers, hearts, peacock feathers, floral ribbons, are inspired by traditional elements of Hungarian folk art. The roof of the town hall is covered with multicolored pepper tiles produced at the Pec Ceramics factory in Zsolnai. The main staircase is made of white stone. The balustrades and staircase walls are covered with dark green tiles, also with the Zsolnai stamp. In the windows of the main chamber there are stained glass windows of the most famous Hungarian secession artist Sándor Nagy.
смотри, бочоночек какой. Что он там сделал из-за бумаги? Пойдем, пойдем. Все на венгерском ОТП банке сидят.
The town hall is a harmonious combination of arts and crafts. The height of the tower is 76 meters, and the height of the terrace on the tower with gazebos is 45 meters. The length of the building is 105 meters, the width is 55 meters, and the area is almost 6,000 square meters. 10. Subotica was part of Austria-Hungary until the end of the First World War. In 1918 the city became part of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes. As I said earlier, as a result, Subotica became a border town in Yugoslavia and for some time did not experience the dynamic prosperity it had enjoyed before the First World War. However, during that time, Subotica was the third most populous city in Yugoslavia, after Belgrade and Zagreb. Yes, you may be surprised, but this is a fact. In 1941, Yugoslavia was invaded and divided by the Axis powers, and its northern regions, including Subotica, were annexed by Hungary. The international community did not consider the annexation legal, and the city was still de jure part of Yugoslavia. The Yugoslav government in exile received official recognition of legitimacy as the country's representative. On the 11th of April 1941, Hungarian troops arrived in Subotica on the grounds that the majority of the city's inhabitants were ethnic Hungarians, who had been part of the Kingdom of Hungary for over 60 years before. During World War II, the city lost about 7,000 of its citizens, mostly Serbs, Hungarians and Jews. Jews lived in Subotica. Many of them were deported from the city during the Holocaust, mainly to Auschwitz. In April 1944, a ghetto was created under German administration. In addition, many communists were executed during the Axis rule. In 1944, Axis forces abandoned the city and Subotica became part of the new Yugoslavia. During the period 1944-45, approximately 8,000 citizens, mostly Hungarians, were killed by the partisans during the recapture of the city as retaliation for Hungary's support of the Axis powers. In the post-war period, Subotica gradually modernized. During the Yugoslav and Kosovo wars of the 1990s, significant numbers of Serb refugees arrived in the city from Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo, while many ethnic Hungarians and Croats, as well as some local Serbs, simply left the region.
Балкончики. Очень здорово. Там такие парадные лестницы. Просто вау. Красиво.
Well, we move on along the city streets. Before us is a view of the Catholic Cathedral, the Cathedral of St. Teresa of Avila. Before its closure, this cathedral was the Cathedral Diocese of Subotica, and today it is an architectural monument, has the honorary status of a minor basilica, included in the Register of Cultural Monuments of Great Importance in Serbia. In the second half of the 18th century, Subotica had a significant Catholic population, which was also growing rapidly, which led to the need to build a large Catholic church. In 1748, there were 5,290 Catholics living in Subotica, and 20 years later there were 7,800 Catholics. At this rate, by 1791 there were almost 20,000 people. The Catholic community of Subotica was multinational, consisting mainly of Croats, Hungarians, Germans and Slovaks. The architectural style can be described as transitional from Baroque to Classicism. The temple is located in the very center of the historical city, serving as the architectural dominant of one of the main city squares. The length of the cathedral is 61 meters, the height of the bell towers is 64 meters. The main altar was made in Pest, the eastern lowland part of Budapest, at the beginning of the 19th century, and the wall paintings date back to the last decades of the 19th century. The cathedral organ was created in 1897 in Pécs, also in Hungary. In the 20th century, the church was restored. Currently, the parish of St. Teresa numbers about 12,000 people and is bilingual, made up of approximately equal proportions of Hungarians and Croats. But as you can see, things are very bad for the building. The Hungarian government has already allocated about 10 million euros for renovation of the church. Stjepan Beredic, who has been pastor of St. Teresa since 1985, says there have always been cracks in the cathedral. The towers are now standing, but both are pulling the church building to their side. Because it has a lot of weight, it has a huge burden in the towers. This is why cracks appear in the nave of the church. Renovation of the church began in 2017 with the support of the Hungarian government. They tried to save the cathedral by driving piles and pouring construction foam. However, the arrival in November 2023 still remains under renovation. Nearby there is a park and a square for all victims of fascism. On it there is a monument to fallen soldiers and victims of fascism. In 1985, the monument was restored. The square, once called Street Teresa, is now the square of the victims of fascism. The monument was created by Toma Rizadic and Anna Beshlik. Well, we move on.
Такой чуть более подлизанный Калининград, да, местами?
Ну да.
Такая уже осенняя ворожба. Это больница.
but we move on.
Закончилась
And
вода.
here in front of us in the evening haze is the old synagogue. Another famous landmark of Subotica in Serbia is the synagogue, built in 1902. No sharp lines or sharp corners, only smooth, flowing modern lines, shell, windows and the deep emerald color of the turrets. The chapel accommodates 850 men and 550 women. According to tradition, they must be separated. But I haven't been able to get inside yet. The synagogue was closed every time I came to the city with hope in my soul. Decorations for the chapel were brought from the Hungarian Jolne factory. At the beginning of the 20th century, this factory became the largest supplier of all kinds of decorative items and therefore covered the whole of Subotica with ceramics. Almost all of these beautiful squiggles on the facade come from Hungary. The city was one of the largest customers of the Hungarian Jolne factory, for which it even received 2 vases as a bonus. In general, this is the second largest synagogue Europe, after the Great Synagogue in Budapest. As I said earlier, the synagogue was built in 1902, when Vojvodina was under the rule of Austria-Hungary. Therefore, there are many projects from here. And the synagogue was built by young Budapest architects Dezo Jakaba and Marcela Komora, students of the famous Lechner. They are also the authors of many beautiful buildings in Subotica and neighboring Hungarian Szeged, which is just a stone's throw away. The new synagogue was erected on the site of the old one at the expense of the Jewish community of Subotica, numbering more than 5,000 people at the beginning of the 20th century. Subotica is a city at the crossroads of cultures. The influence of Orthodox Serbia, Catholic Hungary, and Protestant Germany can be seen here. There is an Ottoman, Bulgarian, Greek trace. Until 2018, the synagogue building was thoroughly restored with funds from Hungary and the European Union. Well, with this we will say goodbye to you. Be sure to rate this video, recommend it to your friends and forward it to each other. This will help the video rank better in YouTube search. Well, as always, leave your comments under the video. Be sure to write how you liked or disliked the city of Subotica, the areas in which we walked in general. Don't forget to watch other videos on my channel. And we will definitely see you in new episodes on the channel soon.
Мне кажется, в разы поинтереснее, чем дом с Каргулей. Боже ты мой. Катюх, вообще просто фантастика.